Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Now, Syrian and Russian warplanes have reportedly mounted the heaviest airstrikes in months against rebel-held districts of the city of Aleppo overnight, defying U.S. calls for a halt to flights in order to salvage a now fragile ceasefire. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says if a ceasefire deal is to be salvaged, warplanes must stop flying over key parts of that country. His comments came Wednesday during a high-level meeting of the United Nations Security Council. More from VOA's Margaret Bashir.
The United States and Russia agreed to a cessation of hostilities on September 9th, but two deadly incidents since then have tested its viability.
So I believe that to restore credibility to the process, we must move forward to try to immediately ground all aircraft flying in those key areas in order to de-escalate the situation and give a chance for humanitarian assistance to flow unimpeded. And if that happens, there's a chance of giving credibility back to this process.
Kerry said a flight ban would also prevent the Syrian military attacking civilian targets with the excuse that it is going after armed groups and terrorists. The ban would also help build confidence toward restarting intra-Syrian talks.
How can people go sit at a table with a regime that bombs hospitals and drops chlorine gas again and again and again and again and again and again and acts with impunity? You're supposed to sit there and have happy talk in Geneva under those circumstances when you've signed up to a ceasefire and you don't adhere to it?
His Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, told the council that there are different versions of what happened to an aid convoy near Aleppo on Monday that resulted in 20 deaths.
We insist on a very thorough and impartial investigation of the attack on the humanitarian convoy.
Britain's Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson told reporters it is too soon to say conclusively who carried out the attack, but that there are strong indications it was Russia. Johnson said only Russia and Syria were flying in that area and that Britain has doubts that the Syrians are capable of flying at night.
Now, the Syrian crisis has, of course, dominated the UN General Assembly. For more from the UNGA, VOA's United Nations correspondent Margaret Bashir joins me live from New York. Hi, Margaret.
Hey, Vincent. So today, carrying again off that package we just saw, the International Support Group for Syria is meeting in about an hour's time. The ministers, Mr. Kerry, Mr. Lavrov, and other ministers in that group, just trying to see whether this ceasefire can be salvaged. The United Nations said today that some aid has gotten into one town, Muadamiyah, and that's one of the besieged towns that the UN has been trying to deliver to. They got food in for about 7,000 people, so aid is very, very slowly starting to roll out. The UN says it has 40 trucks full of supplies sitting on the border of Syria and Turkey waiting to come in, but they can't do it yet. They need particular permissions, and they need security concerns, security guarantees.
Now, if we may stay with Syria for a moment here, we started by saying that Syria and Russians have probably launched the biggest, bombing campaign there. Now, it's a little disturbing here. Kerry and Lavrov and other officials are there. Does it mean they're not really talking to each other about that? I mean, how is it that it's happening?
Well, I think it means they're frustrated with each other. Oh, well, I mean, they're talking to each other militarily. They've been doing that for the whole year that the Russians, since the Russians joined militarily in Syria. So they do communicate with each other. I mean, they've never had an incident where the Russians or the U.S.-led coalition have attacked one another, for instance, or accidentally bombed one another when they've been in the skies. So they do have to be in touch with each other. But diplomatically is another story. And, maybe they're talking at each other, not to each other. I'm not quite sure what the problem is. But basically, as angry as Secretary Kerry was yesterday, I think it was clear that he was saying the cessation of hostilities is the only game in town, and we're going to have to figure it out.
Sure.
So whether we like each other or not, we're going to have to figure it out.
Yes. Now, another issue close to that region in the Middle East is, of course, the Palestinian-Israeli issue. President of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, spoke today. What did he have to say?
Yes, he made his speech, and he focused a lot on the Israeli settlements in Palestinian occupied lands. He said they're illegal, which most of the international community agrees with him on that. He said that they will come to the Security Council for a resolution on the settlements and on what he called terror by the settlers, because there's been a lot of violence between Israeli settlers and Palestinian citizens. So he said he will come to the council about it. That's no surprise, really. We've been hearing for several months in New York that there may be some sort of a Security Council effort before the end of this year, really before the end of the Obama administration is what it's about, to get a resolution on Palestine, either on the parameters for peace or on the settlements. And I think they've decided that settlements might be the easier road to go down, and perhaps the U.S. administration might be amenable to it.
Margaret, thank you very much, as always. We'll check with you again tomorrow.